I'm so glad that we were able to connect. I cannot believe where this video went. And I think it was your nephew
Been
that
riding it for about
messaged
30
me and
years.
said, "Oh my God, dude, that's my uncle. I live down the road from." Is it your nephew?
He is, yeah.
Yeah.
Matthew, yeah, yeah,
Too funny.
yeah. And I
Uh,
don't know, I don't know when I would have heard about it if it hadn't been for Matthew. Later, some other people you saw on there knew me, but it was much later in the video.
and it's still trickling through. So it's been viewed 10 million times, 178,000 likes, 2,400 comments, and 150,000 shares, which I think is the craziest stat. This 150,000 people shared that with somebody else. It just goes to show how unique this bike is. So you
Wow.
definitely would have heard about it because I was going to be looking for you, and I always go up Friendship on my way back from a long ride because it's just like the most brutal way to finish. So we kind of piled together the six most asked questions. So I think let's jump into this thing. Everyone says, "Wait, whoa, what's going on here?" So what got you to create this, and just how does this bike work exactly? Maybe if you could dissect the normal crank from the front crank. What's going on?
I wanted to get an arm and leg exercise, so I experimented with cranks on the front and finally got this crank to work. This is like the third or fourth, I don't remember, version of the original. And what it is, basically, it's two drive systems, one for the front wheel that you use your arms with, and one for the rear wheel, like a conventional bike that you use your legs with. And they're identical drives. I've right now I've got one by gearing, which means there's only one front ring in on the crank, on the
Mm-hmm.
bottom bracket or the hand crank, and I've really got a real simple cassette on the back. I got 7 speeds because you don't seem to need a lot of speeds with it. There's so much variation you can do with arms and legs, or just legs, or very rarely do I do just arms, but it's mostly arm and legs together. But anyway, like I said, they're identical drive systems, and I'm always in the same gear with my arms and my legs. So I have one shifter. It would be nice to have like a wireless shifting, but this is real simple. And most people say, how do you shift it with both hands on the crank? Well, when I'm going to do something with my other hand, this pretty much is all I need to steer the bike. I can reach for
Okay.
something in my pocket or a water bottle, or here's the shifter right here. So I shift, it shifts the front and the rear at the same time.
Okay.
And you
So how
would
does
know
it do that? Does
with
it have
wrong
two?
gear.
It has two cables running through there that go to the front and the back at the same time.
Yep, two cables go to the same shifter, to one
Okay.
shifter. So it shifts simultaneously, front and rear.
What type of shifter is that? Is that a Shimano?
It is. No, this is a Sun Tour.
Oh no way. That's amazing.
It's old. I think I had it on one of the original bikes I made 30 years ago. It just works great. It's real heavy duty, and
When you
I
say
thought it
bikes
would
that
have
you
been
make, do
ready
you
for.
frame build or do you just you make bikes normally or back in the
This
day?
is the custom part of this is the fork and the steering stem slash crank on the front. Um, it's a steering stem that goes out
Can you
with the
bring that a little
bottom
closer to the
bracket.
camera? Bring that in a little bit here. Or is it on a stand? Yeah, just okay.
So there you can see it. This
Okay.
this little device here is for another derailleur, like a front derailleur. I had 2 rings on here at one time, but now I just have one ring. I like it a lot better. But
That is
so this is custom, of course. It's a steering stem with a bottom bracket for your crank, and then the front fork has to accept a rear wheel.
Mm-hmm.
So it takes 130 millimeter spread. And this is a new fork I just had made. It has a derailleur hanger welded on it, so you can put a derailleur on it. And so now I can put any kind of wheel I want to on it, as long as it's a standard 130 millimeter.
So how does one of the biggest questions was, how does this guy turn and descend? The turning doesn't really make me wonder as much as the fact that your stem length is so varied and different. And what is descending like? Are you mostly right hand forward or left hand forward, or does it depend on which way you're turning? But you really kind of have to know the road, and here
that's a good question. What's comfortable for me is to have my right hand forward, and sometimes instead of having my left hand on the other grip, or most of the time, I rest it on the bottom bracket or the crank right here. And it's pretty aero position. You got one hand out, and it turns just like a regular bike.
When you first rode this, were you like, I can't believe I've actually put this together? And were you somewhat scared?
Well, I didn't want to go to a whole lot of trouble and not be able to ride it, so I made a kind of a dummy configuration just to see if you could ride a bike with a crank instead of handlebars. And I went out and tried it, and it worked. So then I designed my first bike, and it was pretty much just a nut and bolt together thing, and very heavy. But I really liked it when I first got on it. There's a big learning curve. You have to get used to how it steers, of course, and then after a while, you don't even think about it. That's what you want. You want to be in the stage where you don't even think about it. It just goes by itself.
And one of the biggest things people were freaking out about was that chainring is very close to your face. Have you had any close encounters, or have you ever, I think maybe you had mentioned or someone else mentioned a guard, or what's the state of your worry with that? Because it actually, once people started talking about it, I'm like, that could be pretty gnarly.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. When I had 2 rings on it instead of 1, I had a guard on it, because you don't want a bare ring in your face, you know.
Yeah.
But now with the chain on it, I'm fairly comfortable. I guess I could put a guard on it, and people like that.
It was great that people were worried about you. They're like, who is this guy? And
yeah, made for some good conversation, I guess.
For sure. And they were super, I'm glad you got on Instagram to join in, because they're like, who is this guy? I'm like, I have no, until your nephew chimed in, I'm like, I have no idea. I literally just moved here and I found this guy on the road, and it's one of those videos that I was not even going to post. I'm like, I'll just see if somebody finds this funny. So what really, though, you had kind of told me this, what's the quick and dirty of why did you do this? I think we missed that in the beginning. You had told me, but it's, you clearly are an inventor of sorts, but what was the main reason besides just your
at that tinkering? Time, the main reason was just to get upper body exercise, but over the years, it's just, it's hard to explain to people just ride a regular bike, but it really is a great workout. And since I've gotten older, it compensates for some other issues I have. It's served me really well, and I'll continue to ride it for sure.
And didn't you do something at App State? Didn't they look at they looked at the bike. You mentioned in the comments somewhere that you did a test. Man, my phone, it's so funny. You were like, hey, did you see that comment I made? It's slowing down now, but literally it was like, I don't see anyone. Like, my friends would be like, hey, why didn't you reply to my comment on that? I'm like, because I don't see them. It's just like exploded. So didn't something happen at App State, or I caught something and then the next second it was gone?
App State University, the sports medicine department did a study of my bike back in 1993. And I've got the written up report and everything. But basically, what they did was they had me to ride this bike on a treadmill that elevated until exhaustion, and they did VO2 max and heart rate and videos of how my body was moving, everything like that. But and then I took 2 weeks off, and they had me riding a regular bike, and that's all I did was ride a regular bike. And I did the same test, went through the same inclining. I think they inclined it several degrees every few minutes. And if I remember right, the whole test lasted about 15 minutes until you were exhausted. I mean, they really put you to the test. And their findings were that I could do 31% more work with the arm and leg bike before exhaustion and more than the 31% more work than on a regular bike.
Wow. That's crazy.
And so I asked the professor when he got through, I said, what does that mean? He said, well, it means you're pretty good on that bike, but he said to really get a good evaluation, we would have to have a whole field of riders that are doing the same thing that you're doing. So that would probably be pretty difficult. There's, I'm the only one I know. So.
That would be, but it actually goes along with the last two questions here. You do also ride a regular bike. What do you think are the pros and cons of this bike? And then as you're talking about a study that would need more people, do you see a future in this type of thing at all? Or is this kind of like just your one-off invention and we won't see it go anywhere? So what do you think are the pros and cons?
The obvious things is the cons would be the extra weight and extra gears and more complicated, harder to get used to, harder to ride. It goes on and on. But really, I've learned that you can ask anybody to ride with. That, when they see me ride this bike, it's a big difference in me riding a regular bike, and the fact that my performance is much greater. Right? It's no question that I can do better, and whether that's because of just how used to I am, I probably built up more muscle in my arms and less in my legs. I think when you get older, you lose a little muscle in your legs. But whatever it is, it's working for me, so I'm going to keep doing it as long as I can.
That's awesome.
But I do like riding a regular bike. They're very comfortable, and like in a descent, you have your hands on the brake hoods, or it's just easy. But if I want to get power out of the bike, and I'm competing against my friends or whatever, then there's no question I'll ride this bike.
So are you stealing KOMs from people with this bike, which I think would be legal, but other people, that was a funny question. I thought, I was like, is this guy getting KOMs out there? And you're not on Strava, man. You don't like social media. You got to get out there with this like wild stuff.
Yeah.
For people that don't follow me on Strava and don't know where I live, this is a place where you can go ride 5 hours and climb 10,000 feet. So Robert's going up and down hills quite often. And what is your normal route from Friendship then for people that are kind of familiar with the area, that have been kind of peeping my rides? Do you go like northeast? Where do you go?
I like riding on the Parkway, but I prefer riding with somebody or in a group. It gets kind of crowded. Mm-hmm. So where you met me that day is basically where I live. Mm-hmm. And I go up Friendship and into Aho Gap and go down George Hayes Road, Bamboo.
George Hayes, my VO2 max little climb. It's like a perfect, you can do a hard start at the very bottom there where it's super steep, and then it just kind of, do like a 5-minute effort up to, I don't even get up to the top, and it's pretty quiet.
Little steeper at the top.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The top, if you're going for the KOM there's a group ride that has it. I don't even think I could ever touch it because that top part they were ripping. It really does kick up there.
Yeah. That's probably the Wednesday night ride, I guess.
Yes, you are right.
Down there. Yeah.
What other things have we missed about the bike or about what do you call this?
I call it arm and leg cycling.
All right.
Yeah.
A&L.
There's a hand and foot name that goes around. There's a couple companies in Germany that make arm and leg or hand and foot cycles. And I've talked to both of the owners of those companies, and they do it a little different than I do. If anybody's interested in this bike, they should look at what they do and just note the differences, and they got a product to sell, so if somebody wanted to buy something. But
what are the companies that you would recommend they look into? And I'll put it in the notes here.
Okay, there's one called Twicycle, TWICYCLE.
Okay.
And another one's called Verabike, just like it sounds, BARIBIKE.
Cool.
But you got to pay attention to how they're doing it. They know what I'm doing, and it's different. But what they've got is, well, you'll see when you look at it. It's a lot different. Yeah.
Man, I appreciate you sitting down and doing this. I'm excited to let other people want to know more info about it, especially, people on YouTube. I think it probably has 500,000 views over there too or something. I haven't looked in a while, but really appreciate you kind of running people through everything. And I look forward to us catching up on the road when you're back here.
That sounds great. Brandon.
Awesome, man.
Take care.